Well, every team is a little bit different, but they all are, we play basketball, but really we're an entertainment product. We're a game that, we can pack into 2 hours. It's highly entertaining, but you want to be entertained for 2 hours straight. And when there's a whistle, something's got to happen. And music, culture, and food, and art, and fashion, and all those things are just a subculture of basketball. I mean, basketball is a sport that is played all over the world by all different types of people, not just guys that look like me. And it's a different cultural approach to the game, and the sport is rooted in all those things. And music dovetails so nicely, as does the concept of art and food and fashion. It all seems to hover around the game of basketball without really trying it. So, for us to make that, or take those bits and pieces and integrate them into our experience, is pretty seamless. We play, a DJ plays throughout the whole game. There are only breaks on free throws, and knock on wood, if somebody ended up getting hurt, but it's constant movement, constant things going on. And it's exciting, and it adds to the environment, and the players like it, and it becomes part of the game. So, when we first set out to do our first championship weekend, one of the first guys I wanted to get was Four Corners, the Raptors DJ, to come be our DJ just for the championship, because he knows how to do it at the highest level.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to be able to integrate that way of thinking and bring it forward. And then last year we integrated more of the art side and started calling on people that deliver their art projects or things that they can contribute, and that, this podcast. And we're just trying to reach a segment of the community that I think would really enjoy what we're doing, because it would feel comfortable to them.
So what's your relationship with then, with the music side of the culture? You mentioned the performers at Championship Weekend, Cardinal, Roy Woods. What's your relationship with with that side?
I'm not going to say we hang out all the time, but it's my relationship is I understand their value, and I understand the importance of having them part of what we do, because like I said, it's bigger than just the sport. So obviously the Scarborough influence with our most recent acts were something I leaned in on that group right away and said, listen, here's what we're trying to do. Help us out. You know just about everybody in that space. How do we bring this, to the highest and best value? And they stepped up and helped us out. But we were always thinking along those lines of what's going to cater to our audience, who is our audience. And I think the important part is our audience is very young. So about 85% of our fans are 44 and younger. There's a good split of almost 50-50 of male and female. And the bulk of our fans are those, young teenagers, the ones that think it's really cool that OVO's got, the owl on the jersey, or they got, they're doing a relationship with U of T, right? There's little things that are a lot cooler to young kids that maybe have nothing to do with the basketball itself. It has to do with the experience and the environment.
Yeah. And I mean, that's always the way it is. We want to make an impact on the next generation coming up. And this is what this generation likes. I think even about New Era, brands like that spice up the culture element, when you say as well.
Yeah. Well, New Era was interesting, because we always knew that from a headwear perspective, they were the best in the world. So, we wanted to get them involved, but they really got into bed with us because of our logos. And our logos, they skew younger for most of our teams. And that was kind of a factor that New Era said, this is good for us. Like, we want the younger kids wearing the headwear, wearing the jersey. They were just rolling out their apparel program. So we were kind of one of the first to do it. And that's also part of what we talked about on the fashion side, right? It's cool to wear a jersey for some of these young kids, and because it represents something that's cool. And those partners are important. Just like, we started with Spalding with a typical game ball, then we change it to our own style of game ball. And there's nothing revolutionary about it, but it's just another little piece of the puzzle that separates us, that makes us different.
Yeah. And you talk about putting that jersey on, which in turn, caters to that element of the basketball culture that brings out community, inclusivity. Do you lean into this with your decisions? I'm going to say obviously, but that's a big element.
Absolutely. I mean, it is, if the fan base is who it is, you have to cater to the fan base. And in some ways you have to think outside of that and say, well, how do we attract, other people that that, what is going to make them tick. The same way we try to attract players. So what's important to the player? What are they looking for? Is it getting paid X amount, or is it staying in a great accommodations, or is it traveling, properly, or is it free gear? Like, what is it? Or is it just the coaching and the chance to play in front of their fans, or wear the name on the back of their jersey, or build their brand? So we take that same approach to the fan base. What's important? And what I've heard more often than not, especially this past weekend when we were in Edmonton, was I was meeting, parents that were my age that had young teenage kids, that those kids knew everything about the CEBL. Stuff that you would think, like, that's it. My daughter, who's about to turn 13, her favorite players, Lindell Wigington, and then it's Trayvon Duval, and then she doesn't know them. She never watched them play basketball growing up. She thinks they're cool. There's something about them that thinks, hey, they're good basketball players, but I think she probably thinks they're cute, and she thinks they're cool. And but that's great. It just manifested itself. It's kind of interesting in that way.